My name is Claire. And if there's one thing I've learned after surviving a bitter divorce, it's this. Happiness doesn't come from finding the perfect man. It comes from choosing the right one at the right time in your life. I met Michael at a parenting seminar. He was tall, composed, with calm brown eyes that somehow carried the quiet fatigue of a man who had been through a storm. He was there with his son Ethan, a quiet, withdrawn teenager with gray eyes like a frozen lake in winter. Back then I barely noticed them, just another father and son in a crowd. But fate, or maybe life's strange sense of humor, kept bringing us together, again and again, until I started to believe in second chances. Michael and I got married after nearly 2 years of dating. I hesitated, of course. He had a life before me, an ex-wife full of unresolved pain, and a teenage son navigating his own kind of storm. But I believed I could love enough for all of us. I thought if I was sincere, Ethan would eventually open his heart. We moved into a house in the quiet suburbs, a pretty little home with a backyard and birds that sang in the morning. I moved in with Michael and Ethan after the wedding, carrying with me my quiet dream of a blended family. Cooking dinner every night, movie nights on weekends, the sound of laughter echoing down the hall. Ethan said nothing when I brought in my boxes. He stood silently on the stairs, arms crossed, eyes unreadable. He didn't welcome me, but he didn't resist either. I smiled at him gently as if to say, I don't expect you to call me Mom. I just hope we can find a way to live together with kindness. At first, things were calm. Michael was warm and communicative. He shared everything with me. Finances, fears, even the quiet panic of parenting a teenage boy on his own. Ethan stayed distant. He didn't talk much. After school, he went straight to his room. Sometimes I'd see him in the backyard, sitting still, staring into space. I didn't push. I didn't pry. I just made sure he knew I was there, present, available, and trying. But then, I started noticing something. It wasn't obvious. Not something you could point at and say, this is wrong. But a feeling. And feelings don't lie. As a woman, I've always trusted my intuition, even when I tried to ignore it. Every time I passed the living room, I'd catch Ethan's eyes flicking away just a beat too slowly. In the mornings, walking downstairs in my robe, I'd feel eyes on me, from the top of the stairs, from behind half-closed doors. Not warm, not cold, but something else, something unspoken and deeply unsettling. I didn't tell Michael. I didn't want to be the paranoid new wife who made a scene over teenage awkwardness. I told myself, he's just a boy, probably struggling with puberty and emotions he doesn't understand. I bought books. I watched videos about adolescent psychology. Everyone said, give them space. Be patient. Be loving. And I tried. God, I tried. Until one day, I was doing dishes in the kitchen, half lost in thought, when I glanced at the reflection in the window. There he was, Ethan, standing behind the doorway to the living room. Not moving. Not speaking. Just staring. At me. At my back. When I turned around, he quickly looked away, almost clumsy in his retreat. My heart thudded. Not from fear, but from the gnawing certainty that something was wrong, deeply wrong. That night I couldn't sleep. Michael snored softly beside me, completely unaware. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about Ethan, about the lingering glances, the way he always seemed to be around when I was folding laundry, the soft click of doors shutting when I turned too fast. Tiny things, small moments. But when you put them together, they paint a picture that chills the blood. I began to pay closer attention. Not just intuition now, I started documenting. His patterns, his timing, the places he chose to be when I was around. And I saw it clear as day. Every time I walked down the hall, his door would be slightly open. A crack. Just enough to see through. I stopped wearing thin pajamas. I locked the door when I changed. And still I knew, one more step, just one, and I'd be staring the truth in the face. But what was the truth? I couldn't confront Ethan. I couldn't point at him and say, you're looking at me the wrong way. I couldn't tell Michael, your son makes me feel unsafe in my own home. Because no one believes feelings without proof. And proof, that's the one thing I didn't have. I felt like I was living two lives. On the outside, I was Claire, the sweet stepmom, the second wife, the gentle homemaker who tried her best to build a family. But inside, I was a woman who no longer felt safe in her own house. A woman who flinched at creaking floorboards and avoided certain rooms at certain hours. I wanted to believe I was wrong. That all of this was coincidence. That Ethan was just lost, just grieving, just confused. But trust misplaced is a blade. And then the thing I feared the most happened. I don't know what woke me that night. Maybe the creak of an old wooden floorboard. Maybe a chill that slipped through a cracked window. Or maybe it was something deeper. A whisper from my instincts, telling me I was no longer alone in the dark. The clock read 2:43 a.m. Michael was fast asleep next to me. His breathing slow and steady, blissfully unaware that my world was quietly unraveling thread by thread. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding in my chest. That feeling was back, that strange heaviness pressing against my ribs. The one that said, "You're being watched." I slipped my robe over my shoulders and padded quietly down the hallway. The house was silent, except for the soft ticking of the wall clock and the sharp rhythm of my heartbeat. That's when I saw it. The bathroom door was cracked open, just slightly. A sliver of warm yellow light spilled out like a secret trying to escape. I stood still staring. I knew I had turned off that light earlier. I remembered. I walked forward slow and cautious. My hand trembled as I pushed the door open. Nothing seemed out of place, except for the white bath towel on the floor. And then I saw it. In the mirror. Fingerprints. Faint smudged, 5 ghostly prints on the foggy glass. Like someone had stood just inches away watching. Waiting. The next morning, I asked Michael gently, almost playfully, "Does Ethan ever wake up in the middle of the night?" He looked up from his coffee, surprised. "No. That kid sleeps like a rock." But I didn't know. I didn't know anything anymore. I started locking our bedroom door at night. I blocked the bathroom door with a shelf when I showered. At first, I felt ridiculous, paranoid. But deep down, a quiet voice kept whispering, "You're not safe." And then came the rainy March afternoon I'll never forget. Michael had gone out of town for work. Just 2 days. Ethan stayed home with me. The atmosphere in the house felt thick, heavy, like breathing through fog. I tried to keep things normal. Music playing in the background, cookies in the oven, a movie queued up on the TV. But his eyes, they followed me everywhere. And not with the blank stare of a confused teenager. No, it was something else. Something darker. Around 5, I went to shower before dinner. I always locked the door. Always. But that day, I forgot. Maybe because I was tired. Maybe because I was trying to pretend things weren't falling apart. The water was warm. I stood under the stream with my eyes closed, letting myself have one moment, just one of peace. Then I heard it. A soft sound. So quiet, it almost didn't exist. The door. I turned instantly, water still pouring over me. And there he was. Ethan. Standing in the doorway. Not knocking. Not calling out. Just standing there. Watching. I screamed. I reached for my towel, heart slamming against my ribs. My voice cracked, high and panicked. "Ethan. Get out. Get out." He didn't move right away. He just stared. His expression unreadable. Not shocked. Not embarrassed. Just cold. Curious. Like I was something to study. And then he turned and walked away. Calm. Silent. No apology. No shame. The door clicked shut behind him. And I sank to the floor, soaking wet, knees shaking, skin burning with humiliation and fear. I didn't know if the water on my face was from the shower or from my tears. That night, I locked myself in our bedroom. I sat on the floor, knees to my chest, sobbing like a woman who finally realized she wasn't crazy. Because it was real. All of it. The glances. The open doors. The creeping presence in the dark. And now this. I had given him the benefit of the doubt. I told myself he was lost. Confused. Just a boy who needed patience. But no. He knew. He knew exactly what he was doing. That look in his eyes, it wasn't confusion. It was a test. A push to see how far he could go. And I had let it go too far already. I wanted to call Michael. I wanted to scream the truth into the phone, demand answers, demand action. But I froze. What if he didn't believe me? What if he said, "Claire, he's just a teenager. Maybe you misunderstood." What if I became that woman? The second wife who couldn't get along with the son. I could already hear the doubt, the subtle blame. The way people always look sideways at women who speak out. I had always believed in family, in healing, in being patient. But now, I wasn't sure where that belief had left me. Trapped in a house that no longer felt like home. Living beside a boy who had crossed a line I could never uncross. And deep down, I knew something else. This wasn't over. This was only the beginning. I used to think the worst had already happened. I thought the stairs in the bathroom, the creaking doors at night, the cold gaze of a teenage boy who looked at his stepmother like she was some strange game. I thought that was the peak of my fear. But I was wrong. So wrong. 3 days after the bathroom incident, I tried to go on like nothing had happened. I didn't tell Michael. I didn't confront Ethan. I just existed. I breathed, I ate, I slept. But something inside me had cracked. I started watching. Closely. Every time Ethan entered a room, I no longer saw him as a child. I studied his eyes, his hands, the way he moved. And the terrifying thing was, he knew I was watching. He liked it. That afternoon, Michael had just left to get the car serviced. I was collecting laundry from Ethan's room. I never invaded his privacy before. But that day, something inside me pushed my hand toward the desk drawer. I found a second phone. No password. I didn't want to look. Truly I didn't. But that voice inside me screamed. And so I opened the photo album. There was a folder labeled projects. My hands trembled as I tapped on it. And then I saw them. Images that made the blood in my veins turn to ice. Blurry shots. The curve of my back as I leaned over to turn on the shower. My wet hair falling over one shoulder. The bathroom door slightly ajar. Nothing explicit. But enough. Enough to know I had been watched. More than once. I wanted to scream. I wanted to smash the phone against the wall. But I couldn't move. My body froze in disbelief and rising panic. Then I saw the messages. Sent to someone named Zach. Bro, check this out. LMAO smirking face, she didn't even know. Gonna get a better one next time. I felt sick. Not just because I had been violated, but because Ethan was proud of it. Like I was some trophy. A joke to share in a group chat. Not a human being. Not his stepmother. I stood in that silent room for nearly 10 minutes. No tears. No words. Just rage, quiet, deep and sharp like a knife. That night, I waited for Michael to come home. He walked in smiling, holding a pizza box. I brought your favorite, babe. I nodded. Said nothing. When Ethan walked out of his room, I looked at him. And he looked back. Unflinching. Unapologetic. A tiny, smug smirk barely visible on his lips. I stood up. Michael, I need to talk to you. Now. In private. We went into the bedroom. I closed the door. Locked it. Sat down. And placed the second phone on the nightstand like it was a loaded gun. Michael looked confused. Then concerned. He picked up the phone and started swiping through the images. Then the texts. His face went pale. He didn't say a word for 5 minutes. Then he started shaking his head. Claire, no, this can't be real. Are you sure? Maybe it's not what it looks like. Michael. I cut him off, my voice trembling but firm. Are you seriously suggesting that I misunderstood being filmed in the shower? That I'm overreacting to your son sending pictures of me to his friends? My voice broke. Michael sat down on the bed, hands in his hair. Oh my God. Claire. I don't even know what to say. Then let me say it for you. I snapped. I'm leaving. Tonight. And if I have to, I'll go to the police. I'm done. I'm done being afraid. I'm done pretending everything is okay. Claire, wait. He's my son, he's a boy who's learning how to become a predator. And you're helping him by keeping this quiet. I walked out of that room with the weight of the world on my shoulders. But for the first time in months, I felt something else too. Clarity. I packed a small bag. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't look back. That door closing behind me wasn't just a physical act. It was symbolic. It was the end of silence. The end of denial. The end of sacrificing my safety for someone else's comfort. A few days later, I got an email from Michael. He'd sent Ethan to live with his biological mother. He apologized. He said he finally understood why I left. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because for the first time in what felt like forever, I was free. Not just from Ethan, but from the fear that had ruled my life. From the silence that had choked me. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. I was a woman who knew the line had been crossed. And I chose to walk away instead of drowning in it.